there family, and welcome to my channel. I am Camila Hadia. If you haven't already, don't forget to please subscribe, click the notification bell, and give me a thumbs up and leave some comments below. So today I wanted to come and do a special kind of vlog really about what's happening in the world right now with not only COVID-19 but also with the so-called Black Lives Matter movement, police brutality, and even the things that are going on right now in the Sudan. But before I begin, let me just do this real quick. I have two stones here, two crystals that I just kind of want to bring in the energy of these crystals. So right here I have rose quartz. And here is amethyst. So a lot of these things are happening in the world today and happening to a lot of innocent people. Innocent lives are being lost and disposed of by these energies. I just wanted to talk about it because I noticed two things mainly: the energy of COVID-19 and the energy of the Black Lives Matter movement. With COVID-19, so when we first started hearing about it, it kind of seemed very foreign. It seemed to be something that wouldn't necessarily affect us. There's a spider. The spider is just like, they find me. I don't get it. Anyway, so yeah, we thought at first it was something like foreign that didn't really apply to us here in the US, and lo and behold, fast forward a few weeks or a month later, and it's like such a source of heartbreak and devastation to a lot of people all over the world. And I'm not invalidating the seriousness of COVID-19 or the Black Lives Matter movement, but what I want you to pay attention to is your energy. You see, there's two types of energy that's dominating the planet right now. There's the energy of fear, and there's the energy of despair. So there's a lot of anger, and there's a lot of pain and frustration. Keep in mind, those are secondary emotions to the despair that a collective group of people have been feeling for centuries. What I want for us is to pay close attention when we're watching social media or the news, when they're talking about the number of deaths, COVID-19, or another new police brutality case or some other injustice done in the world. What I want us to pay attention to is our energy. Our energy is really what's at stake here. Our energy is what is being attacked. If you notice, when you look at the news and you pay attention to the energy that is running through your body, you'll notice that there's emotions of fear and despair, and like a feeling of not knowing what to do, like hopelessness. And the reason why this is dangerous to harbor within yourself is because not only on the physical level it brings your immune system down, but it keeps you on a lower level of consciousness. It keeps you in a low dimension. And that's the point, right? The point is to keep the masses in a low dimension, in low energy, So that elevation and reaching a higher consciousness to be able to use our godness in full strength, in full capacity, is not realized. This is what happens when we constantly allow the news and social media to infiltrate our hearts and our minds. And I'm going to put back up this stone, healing rose quartz, because as human beings, we are here to be human, and that means we are here to experience this dimension from a higher dimension perspective. And that's why our spirit and our soul of who we really are energetically is so expansive and so massive. We come down to this dense reality, and that means that we kind of have to compress ourselves into this vehicle. But our consciousness is very wide and expansive. If we come here and we're supposed to be spiritual beings experiencing this dense human reality, okay, let's experience that, but from the perspective of gods and goddesses, from the perspective of higher beings. And that requires us to maintain a certain energy level. That requires us to remain in high thoughts, in high spirit, in a higher vibration. If we are constantly feeding our mind and our energy with the fear and the despairs of what's happening in the world today, what's that going to do? That is going to bring our vibration down, thereby sinking us even deeper into this lower consciousness, this physical dense dimension consciousness, when we're capable of so much more. So with that said, I'm not saying ignore what's going on. I'm saying learn how to direct your emotion regarding what's going on. So in other words, you watch what you watch. Don't watch too much, but watch enough to get informed. Choose what you watch. Choose what comes into your aura. And from there, feel the emotion that comes up for you, but feel it as a detached emotion. Feel it as your human side experiencing this emotion, and then from that perspective, decide on what it is that you need to do to elevate yourself out of that feeling. For example, if you watch the news recently and they talk about the deaths are rising in Texas or something, immediately that might bring up a fear, right? Oh man, like what's going on? There's a second wave of this thing. We thought it was gonna disappear. It looks like it's gonna last longer than expected. What's gonna happen all summer? When those thoughts come up, you recognize it for what it is. Recognize it as your fear of the unknown, your fear of whether you're going to be able to survive it. And then remember in your being, in your spirit, who you really are, and decide right then and there what you are going to do, say, and think to elevate yourself out of that emotional funk, right? So for example, it might be exercise, or you might choose to think a different thought, like everything that's good and for my greatest and highest good will always come to me. So you choose to elevate yourself out of that negative thought so that you can keep your spirit high. And then, you know, especially when it comes to so-called black lives, and I'm saying so-called black for a reason. I have a friend and a brother. I have a brother that he would tell you with a straight face, he's not black. Like, I'm not black. And he is like, he's chocolate. He's a chocolate brother, right? And he would look at you in your eye and be serious, like he's not black. And because I know him, I know that this is not like, okay, this is a deeper conversation we have in here. This is not like your surface level conversation, the whole I'm not black, I'm white, or I believe I'm white type of conversation. You know, it's like a deeper conversation in terms of the word black. So when you hear that word and you think about that word really in your spirit, so much negativity comes up, right? And not because the word black is inherently a negative word, but the constructs surrounding that word, the agreements of society that was constructed around the word black comes up. It's just like words have double meanings, right? So this word black, a lot of different concepts were structured around this word, and that comes up every time you say the word black as it relates to a human being. And you know, some of those negative thoughts are like, you know, black people and how they look, what they do in society, where the way they live, how they speak, just how they should be treated, you know, in this negative way, less than type of deal, right? So when my brothers, you know, first started, you know, saying that, I was kind of confused. I was like lost, like what do you mean you're not black, you know? And you know, he broke it down for me, but it was still kind of like I still didn't fully get the fullness of what he was saying, right? But you know, because I respect his knowledge, I let myself sit with it because I knew eventually that I would come around to it. So recently my boyfriend asked me, like, because I'm from the Caribbean, so recently he asked me, like, what do I think about the African American and African Caribbean relationship. He didn't say African Caribbean, he said Caribbean, and identifying that as like identifying themselves as black people. He noticed that majority of Caribbean people don't really consider themselves to be black. Not that they consider themselves to be white, but they don't necessarily say like, oh, I'm a black person, or even that they're African. A lot of Caribbean people don't say that they're African. They would say they're Caribbean before they say that they're African. So, you know, and he was asking me, like, you know, what are your thoughts? And I was like, well, you know, I don't necessarily consider myself black because, like, what does that mean? Like, I'm a color? Like, I'm not a color. If I were to identify, I'm African, right? I'm an African by way of the Caribbean and America, because my ancestors were both African, American, and Caribbean. And when I say American, I don't mean America, the United States of America Corporation. I mean the indigenous people. But that word black, where does it lead to? Like, what's the origin of it? Like, okay, you say you're a black person, what does that mean? That means that you're from where? Blackland? You know, like a black island somewhere in the Atlantic? A black nation? No, it has no historical link to a culture, a people, a country, a continent, a custom, a god. That word as it relates to identifying to it, is an arbitrary word or a color that was given to people. That word black and the word Negroes have no nationalistic or national or cultural origin. So why call yourself black? And so that's why now I could like understand what my brother was talking about when he says I'm not black, because it's kind of like when you say you're black, you're really saying that you're nobody, that you're not a natural person born on the natural law, right? Because where are you from? You know, now if you don't ever like in Chinese people, right? Europeans at one point called them yellow, right? And you know, did they adopt that name for themselves, the yellow people? No, they say that they're Chinese. They never once adopted that European branding of calling them yellow, because that severed them from their nationality, from being who they are, from being a people, a nation, right? So they stuck with them being Chinese. They don't call themselves yellow, right? And just the same, so-called white people shouldn't call themselves white, or European people shouldn't call themselves white, right? Because what does that mean, right? Like, you say that you're a German or a Russian or Irish. I think it's time that we stop calling ourselves black and brown people. Like, it means absolutely nothing, and it's actually degrading to yourself, because it's telling the people around you that you don't know who you are. You are not worthy to have an intellectual conversation at this table, because you don't know who you are. You have no origin. Why must I talk to someone who don't know who they are? Why are you, we're gonna debate about issues, vital issues in society, when you don't even know who you are? Why would I do that? Why would anyone do that? So when you think of that word and when you hear it, your spirit feels that sense of being a nomad, having no anchor, having no grounding, having no roots, no home. And that's the energy that is perpetuated in your being, that causes more of the physical manifestation of all these people treating you like you're nobody. So start with the energy within first. And that's why I'm saying, let's identify. If we identify with anything at all, let it be African. Because when you identify with Africa, it's saying that you come from the birthplace of humanity. You know where you're from, and that birthplace of humanity gives you authority to sit at the table where they're discussing issues, vital issues that have your best interest or your detriment in mind.